Hi, this is Byron Stripling again with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. And this week we're incredibly excited because we feature the music of Count Basie, Buddy Rich, and Benny Goodman. We're there at the Southern Theater March 16th through March 20th. And then last Sunday we have two shows, one at 2:30 and also one at 7:30. But here's the fun thing about that. Usually when you celebrate what we call the 3 Bs, which you all know that's Bach, Beethoven, and Justin Bieber. As we celebrate, no, I'm just serious. As we celebrate Basie, Buddy, and Benny, normally people you pull a guest artist out of the air and just throw them on there. But the interesting thing about this week's concert is that we have people that actually got to hang out a little bit personally with the people that we're featuring. And so at this point we have the great Ken Peplowski. And I want to just ask you, did you ever have a chance to sit down with Benny Goodman? I know you played in his band,
yeah.
But you ever have a chance to sit down with him and have a meal, just chat a little bit?
No.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I did. Actually, strangely enough, everybody always tells the crazy stories about Benny Goodman. He was a very complicated guy. He had a generous side as well as a very mercurial side. And he was
What
very...
does mercurial mean?
He runs hot and cold.
Thank you. Hey, look at that. See? What does he...
That was a test.
But Benny, we went out to... He was very nice to me. He tried to get me a record deal before I'd sign with anybody. He offered to produce a record. When I played with Benny, it was a group of younger guys that really respected him, and I think he felt that, and he also treated us nicely. He gave us bonuses, he thanked us, and he and I had an almost weekly meeting at the Carnegie Deli, where we talked about the band, talked about the music, and I'll tell you something, I learned more from watching him lead a band than I did in all the years up till then, and maybe ever since. I've never seen a band leader rehearse a band and get such great results. Except for Byron, of course. But it was really astounding. And just one more thing about him. He died, for jazz musicians now, fairly young. He was in his 70s, but he was kind of frail. He looked like a frail old man. And there were nights on that bandstand where this frail old man just blew us off the bandstand. And he had a way, as did all of those people that we're honoring, of lifting a band just by their presence and by the magic of their playing.
You're playing a song called Clarinet, which is I had not even heard of until you brought up. I went and listened to Benny do it. Is there anything that's difficult as you try to study the style of Benny Goodman that, as a clarinet player, you think, how did this guy do that? Are there any things that were peculiar or interesting about how he...
Yeah, well, not to get too technical, but for one thing, two of the charts we're playing are in the clarinetist keys of E, which are weird, strange keys to play in.
And I was going to ask you, are those easy for clarinet? Because they're hard for the trumpets and the trombones.
They're kind of hard, but for some weird reason, when you get used to it, it lays well on that horn, because the clarinet starts on a low E and goes up to the high E, so you've got like 4 octaves there. But Benny really liked that key. It's a bright sounding key. Clarinet is written in that, and Steel and Apple's another one. But Benny, you know something? I loved his playing so much that I don't try to imitate him. What I do is I think about his playing and try to pay respect to him my way. Because I think the key to Benny, Artie Shaw was a fantastic technical clarinet player. Buddy DeFranco, phenomenal. Not to place people in rankings, but for me personally, I thought Benny was the hottest of all the jazz players. Mm-hmm. It was just something about his time, his intensity, and I'm not saying I accomplished that, but that's what I strive for when I play, to capture that kind of feeling.
Right. Well, we thank you for what you're doing this week, and you guys are going to love it. We're going to do some of the classic Benny Goodman things, and also Ken plays on the other half of our show. And when we talk about that, one of the places we'll go is to the great Buddy Rich. And I was just wondering real quickly, did you ever have any back and forth with Buddy Rich? I know you didn't play with him because there'd be 2 drummers on the stand, but did you ever get a chance to meet him and talk with him?
Oh yeah, he talked with me one time. Yeah, he said, "Get out of my way." No, I was lucky enough, or unlucky enough, whichever you prefer, to have met Buddy way back in like 1972 or 1973 when I was with Mel Torme. Mel and Buddy had a hot and cold, mercurial relationship
Go
going.
ahead on.
Yes, yes, indeed. And sometimes they were good friends, and sometimes they weren't, you understand.
Right. But didn't Mel like Buddy? Because Mel always fancied himself a little bit of a drummer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He loved Buddy. But they would run hot and cold from time to time. But I got to know Buddy very well over the years. I was never a real tight friend of his. You know, I can say that, we used to hang out and go to ball games or anything. But I think Buddy and I had, of course, I had a great respect for him. And I think maybe he respected me a little bit too.
Yeah.
But we did have a chance to hang from time to time, and it was a great deal of fun.
Right.
Sometimes it was a great deal of fun.
Can I ask you, here's the legend. You're playing with Mel Torme.
Mhm.
He's speaking highly of you, and he's speaking highly of you to Count Basie. Some guy on the Basie band is playing the drum chair, and at that time in the history of the Basie band, I know that the band needed a lift. So some guy breaks his foot, they're the current drummer. They call you in to sub. The myth is that you walked in there the first night, played the whole chair with no music, didn't look at any music, and after that, when the guy called back, because Basie told the guy, look, when your foot gets healed and you get yourself together, give me a call, you come on back in, take care of yourself. But they never called him back. Is that a myth, or is that true?
That is partially true.
Where's the myth?
The myth is that I never looked at any of the music.
Okay,
What happened was I looked at some of the music that I didn't know.
okay.
And when Basie called any of the tunes that I did know, because I had been a Basie fan since I'd been 16 years old, had records out the wazoo, and I had memorized everything, that if he called something, I didn't want even dive into the library to try to find the chart. I just played it.
Right.
So I was very fortunate. And there were a number of the arrangements that weren't in the book. I don't know
That's
whether
right.
Sonny Payne had eaten them or what, but they just weren't there.
Still that way today.
But I knew them.
Yeah.
So the myth is that I never looked at the book. The truth is I looked at part of it. But the rest of it I did know.
Right.
Can I say something here? I was just involved in a jazz cruise where I put together an all-star big band, and we had 4 performances, and Butch was the drummer. And he definitely comes from that Buddy Rich school. I hardly ever saw him reading drum parts.
Right.
He listens and immediately has the arrangement.
Right.
It's just phenomenal.
Right. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's something I like to try to teach some of my students at Texas State University. Plug. It's called action reaction, like a law of physics. Duke used to have it with Sonny Greer. Duke's music was the action. Sonny's drumming was the reaction. And they asked Duke one time many years ago, they said, why? Sonny doesn't read music very well, and Sonny Greer, but he's showing, he's flashing everything. Why do you like him for the band? And Duke said, because he's a great reactor. And that's where I got that idea of action-reaction.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that I try not to look at a lot of music sometimes, because Basie told me himself to get my nose up out of the music and start listening. When I start listening, I'm actually playing the music instead of just reading a bunch of notes on a piece of paper. So
That's good
that's what I
stuff.
try to do.
I got one more for you since you're talking about Basie. You go, and it's got to be a nerve-wracking experience because to all of us, whether it's Kim, myself, these guys are idols. Benny, Buddy Rich, and all these guys. And so you go there, you sit down, and it's your first night. You've listened to the music all your life. You feel it's a part of you, but you've never done the gig. You've got Count Basie down there. You got Freddie Green right in front of you. Does Basie talk to you? Does he say anything to you before? If he doesn't, does it make you feel comfortable? Would you have liked him to said more or less, or what happened? Just give us. I know we want to respect everybody's time, but I'm always curious. What happens when you do that first week with Count Basie? What happens?
Very good question. That first night, Basie didn't say a word. Nothing. Silent night over there. He'd smile.
Did he welcome you to, hey, thanks for making it, and da-da-da-da?
Well, earlier that afternoon, when I finally got into town,
Okay.
on the bandstand,
He didn't say nothing.
0.
So did that make you more nervous, or?
Oh God, man! Have you ever seen like old videos or something of guys that used to go to Turkish baths and they'd just be pouring sweat. I was like that before I started to play.
You hadn't played the
I'm
note.
not a note. I'm sitting there and I'm drenched. You know, so it hit me. This is the Count Basie band. That's Count Basie. That's Freddie Green. Oh, and, you know, there's Jimmy Forrest over there. He wrote Night Train. Oh my God. But after I'd been on the band about 4 or 5 days, if you remember the great Sonny Cohn,
Yep.
Cup was the road manager, the band manager, and he sat right in front of me on the bus. And I finally leaned over and I said, Cup, Basie hadn't said anything. You know, does he like what I'm doing? I mean, not a word. And Sonny, he laughed. He says, don't worry, you know, if you're doing the job, he won't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I felt a lot better about it.
Yeah.
Basie was very quiet, so I figured I was okay.
Right.
But those first couple of days, man.
That's beautiful. Well, I want everybody to know that one of the highlights of my career, I've had many highlights, 2 highlights this year. The first time I heard Ken Peplowski, and the first time I heard him play, I was blown away by everything he did. And then I heard you in 1976 in Interlochen, Michigan with the Count Basie Band. Later I heard you in Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis, Minnesota with the Count Basie Band. 2 of the great highlights hearing these gentlemen. And it's our honor this week to be able to feature both of these guys in front of the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. We're there starting Wednesday, March 16th, Sunday, March 20th, 2 shows, and also Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You gotta join us. You gotta hear Basie, Buddy Rich, Benny Goodman music, and we're gonna knock your socks off and light the place on fire. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.